I'm very pleased to have with us here today one of my favourite guitar players. I remember the first time I heard him play. You know, we all have these moments they say about, you know where you were when John F. Kennedy died or when Lennon died. All these huge world events happened. I remember the first time I heard this man play. I was sitting in my car outside a school, waiting to pick my kids up from school. And there was a radio program on BBC Scotland called Travelling Folk, playing traditional music, which I used to enjoy listening to. And suddenly this guitar came on. It wasn't announced, it was back announced. So this guitar came on and I was just immediately blown away with the sound of, just from one note. And then as he started to play, I thought, wow, this is incredible. This is an incredible guitar player, incredible musician. And it was none other than Mr. Tony McManus. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Because you're living in Canada now.
I live in southern Ontario, a little town called Elora, Ontario. It's about 2,000 people. We're about an hour from Toronto. It's a great place. There's tons of musicians, tons of artisans and craftsmen and glass blowers and engravers and a lot of musicians. In fact, one of my favourite guitar players, Kevin Bright, is one of the top session players in Canada, lives directly across the street, so I'm not even the best known guitarist on the block, which is a bit unfortunate, but there you go. We live with it.
But it's great to see your career just blooming all the time. I see your name all over the place. And
it's getting busy. I'm very fortunate. I've had some great helping hands. Like you mentioned Travelling Folk. That was one of the very first things that happened to me when I decided to pursue music as a career. Archie Fisher, who presented the show at the time, had me do I had a session in the studio at the BBC in Glasgow, and they broadcast it and rebroadcast it and rebroadcast it, and that started the ball rolling, which was great. Yeah,
he was great for you at that time.
And always has been,
yeah. So, one of the things I was going to ask you about, because most of the guitar players here play fingerstyle, come from various backgrounds. Some have a jazz background, some don't. But one thing we don't actually cover, because it's something that I do, are different tunings. And of course, you're a real master of the alternate tunings.
Well, it looks as if I use about 27, but it's actually I'm just alternating, cycling between 3 or 4. There's not that many.
Are you?
But so they're standard.
Okay.
I started the way almost all of us do, just learning a few chords from friends at school, the cowboy chords that we all know. And at the time, I grew up in Scotland, as you mentioned, but my family background is mostly Irish rather than Scottish. So all the music at home was traditional stuff like the Chieftains and Planxty and the Bothy Band and people like that. And I was listening to these traditional musicians, and the guitar was in the rhythm section very much. It wasn't the melody instrument. But I was hearing this wonderful low thing going on. So I very quickly got into the habit of tuning the bottom string down to D, just playing along with these records at the time.
Yeah. Actually, Mundell Lowe, great jazz guitar player, he always plays with a drop D tuning.
Wow, that's unusual.
He's done that for many years. Yeah.
Well, it's certainly not a property of the folkies. The Concerto de Hieronymus is the best known classical guitar concerto ever written. The first movement is a drop D tune. But that quickly became my standard tuning. That's basically where I start the day.
Start with a drop D.
From there. Yeah. And I use it for accompanying traditional tunes. I use it for a lot of flat picking, which we probably won't cover today, but also some fingerstyle stuff, like ballads.
So when you're using that picking, I mean, then, well, that tuning rather, then do you'll use a capo a lot of the time?
Some of the time. Just to get into, I tend to think in D shapes. That's my kind of
Yeah.
party central. So if there's a tune in E flat, I'll capo. There's one horrific hornpipe called the Banks hornpipe, which I ended up having to flat pick in E flat,
All right. Okay.
in drop D tuning, which is kind of like a dog walking on its hind legs. It's not done particularly well, but
So
you'll be impressed it's done at all.
For students who have never done this kind of tuning, what could you? Where's the starting point for them? Where would you think they should start from?
Let me just play something. This would be a fairly typical type of thing I would do fingerstyle and drop D tuning. It's a ballad called Donal Óg, a Donegal version of Donal Óg. So I use the bottom string open as a kind of anchor point.
Yeah.
It's not quite a drone, but it's there
Yeah.
a lot of the time.
It makes the guitar sound so rich as well.
But
So
it suits. That's drop D tuning.
dropped it. So where would you take
Well,
it
the
from
next-
there? Okay.
We're going to keep going down. The next stage of my evolution as a player, you have these encounters with players that really change your perception of what the instrument can do. And I listened a lot to Dick Gaughan.
Oh yeah, I love to
And Dick is the great Scottish traditional song interpreter and great guitar player too. And I was listening to his guitar playing, and I couldn't. Not only could I not figure it out, but I couldn't figure out why, because it wasn't Leo Cockey or your stuff. I can figure out why I can't figure it out, but with Gaughan, it was beautifully simple and appropriate, and I couldn't do any of it. And then I saw him play at the Magnum Centre in Irvine. And Dick takes forever to tune between songs, so I figured out what the intervals were between the strings, and I thought, that must be it. And I made a quick note, and off I went home. And it turned out that there's a whole school of dadgad guitar.
So that's dadgad.
That's
now.
dadgad.
Yeah.
D-A-D-G-A-D.
Of course, Pierre Bensusan.
Pierre Bensusan in the 70s encountered this tuning and decided that was where he was going to stay. So he has explored this tuning more than anyone, I think. It was invented by Davy Graham back in 1964.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
Yeah,
he was a great player.
Well, phenomenal.
Yeah.
The way to get your head around it, it's basically one step away from open D, which would be a tuning I never use. So there's a big, fat, happy major third right in the middle, which is great, but how do you play minor? How would you play D minor in that? How would you play F minor, C minor? How do you play miserable Celtic music with a big, fat, happy major third in the middle? You can't do it. Well, I don't know. Somebody might. But Davy came up with the idea, let's take that up to a completely ambiguous fourth.
All right.
So there you have a fourth.
Oh yeah.
So the tuning, if you want to put a name to that chord, it's a D sus4.
Yeah.
So as soon as I tuned the guitar to that, all these things.
That's lovely.
All these things that I'd been listening to from players like Dick Gaughan, Micheál O'Donnell with the Bothy Band, Bensusan I'd yet to encounter, but all of it it came within scope. I couldn't do it instantly, but I began to understand what was going on. This is a little bit of a 2/4 march.
You're making me homesick now.
I don't live there either. I'm homesick too.
No, I think Billy Connolly always said Scottish people are the only people that sing about going back to Scotland
And
when
never
they're still
do.
there.
I know. Or the other ones that sing about going back when they're in Australia, and they never do.
Tony, thanks
Pleasure,
a lot. It's been a real pleasure to see you play, and I'm sure everyone here at the Academy is going to get a lot out of what you've shown us, even if you just take little bits of that and incorporate that into your playing and whatever style you're playing in, and start experimenting with some different tunings, because it is a lot of fun, really is a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank
Tony
you.
McManus.